Now let's move on to wet boards. And on wet boards, I would generally advocate for a more polarized strategy. So, we'll find a lot of wet boards like straight possible boards or whatever, where GTO would be using a very mixed strategy, which I find extremely difficult to replicate. So, I don't know, let's try to look at a wet board. So let's look at, I don't know, 10, 10, 7, 10, 7, maybe not monotone. Oh God, 10, 7, 5. This is a very wet board. And over here, I predict GTO will use extremely mixed sizings. So this is just like, it's impossible for me to remember this because we see it's block betting 20%, it's betting half pot 20%, and then it's betting big 20%, and it's checking 38%. Um, so this is just extremely hard for me to remember. And in this spot, I don't like to follow this plan. I also think that it's like, so I would pick the plan, the strategy where I think people will make the most mistakes. And I think that would be against the large sizing. And also the benefit of like potting it here is that if I pot it on the flop, then I'm going to have the option to jam on the turn. But obviously that's not my only bet sizing option on the turn. I can also bet half pot on the turn, which is also a great option. So, that's one of the reasons why we 3x preflop actually at 25 big blinds, or for example at 20 big blinds, why are we 2.5x? It's because it gives us the option to make it a two-street game by simply betting large on the flop and then jamming on the turn and ending the hand before the river comes, which when we are out of position is really good for us because out of position we won't be realizing equity as much, and we want to take in positions advantage away by taking away an entire street of the hand if that is necessary. So yeah, on this type of a board, I would basically not use a block betting strategy because against a block bet, I think it's really easy to play. I mean, people won't be overfolding here too much. Um, I don't know. Maybe they'll be folding like king four with a diamond sometimes. Who knows? But even that isn't like a terrible fold. It's just like slightly negative EV. And like people will usually be raising enough of their tens. They might even be raising more than they should be, which isn't exactly what I want. And people won't be folding gut shots. So like this is how GTO would react against a block bet, and I don't think that people will be making too many mistakes against this, and it's going to force us into a spot where we get on the turn, and a number of different turns can come, which will just make our life really weird. Uh, well, obviously it depends on our hand. Like maybe if I have an air hand or like a draw, I don't hate block betting because I want to realize my draw, and if I think that the person won't be raising enough, then betting small with like I don't know a flush draw or something could make some sense actually, and then it would allow me to like go for three streets as a bluff sometimes maybe or something. So maybe if I want to like be really exploitative, I could like bet small with an air hand or something. But if I've got value, like if I have a 10 or like pocket jacks or pocket queens, there's just no way I ever want to be block betting against the fish because like there's so many bad turns and against the block bet like they're not they'll call enough and they'll probably like if they raise they'll probably raise against the large size anyways with their value. So if we pot it on the flop, this is how they should be reacting, and I think now people will start to make more mistakes like people like they might start like we notice that they should be folding most of their gut shots or almost all of them. It's like 9-6 or like Jack 9 off should be folded sometimes. Jack 8 off should be folded quite often without a diamond, and so they might be over calling with these types of hands. So when I've got a 10 here or when I've got value, it also like really simplifies my life to have like a pot bet or a checking strategy because like I I know with my value on I can bet big and I want to bet big, and then if I've got a bluff I can just choose whether I want to check or pot it or not basically. Very often I'll be checking, and it's just about choosing the correct bluffs. So, what type of bluffs may I want to use here? It's probably some type of like backdoor types of hands. So, Queen 4 of hearts might make some sense. Maybe something like Ace 3 with the Ace of diamonds could make some sense. Or with the 3 of diamonds, or like some gut shots, maybe like Jack 9 and the worst 2 overcards, so maybe Queen Jack. So I'll use some bluffs that have some equity, but I can easily bet fold or something. Hello, Inigo. And it just like really simplifies my life if I have a large bet strategy here or not. So that's what I'd advocate for on this board. And let's see how a villain should react to a check. So against a check, they should be float betting about half the time. And the thing is, people will be float betting too much here with the equity hands in general. They might be float betting too much with a 7, for example, or with flush draws. So we see that a lot of their flush draws should be checking back. But I think a lot of people will be betting too often with flush draws, or too often with like open-enders and gut shots. So these type of hands want to be checking a ton, as we see. And people are probably float betting too much with these types of hands. So it means that they are like when they float bet, they've got more equity. So it means that I want to play. Well, I obviously with value hands, it's pretty easy to play. If I have a 10, I want to check call or check raise. If I have a 7, I want to check call in general. 2 pairs want to like check raise probably on this board, especially against someone who's float betting more equity hands. But also what it means is if somebody checks on this board, if they check back, then it means I can go and delay extremely light. I can delay much wider than GTO actually. So it means that I can check a lot of my total trash on this board. And if they check this flop, then I can just delay a lot very wide against fishes and weak regs who will be float betting a more equity heavy range. So on these wet boards, I would be going for much more polar sizings. That's the main point.